Hello, everybody. So, of course, I'm Dara Thomason, the life coach for quilters, and I am with my very special friend, Marion, who is just so lovely and so much fun. And so, I'm asking Marion today to share with us all, even despite all of the restrictions that COVID gave us, there was a lot of really good things that came out, and Marion's going to share them with us.
So when the pandemic started, also, I studied biology at BYU.
Mhm.
And so I'm not unfamiliar. I mean, I was not familiar with pandemics or epidemiology or any of those things, but I'm familiar enough with some of it that it wasn't hard for me to understand kind of how pandemics work or to follow the science. And so when it came out and schools were closing almost exactly a year ago, like really close to exactly a year ago, and people were like, "Oh, we'll be back to school in a week," and I'm like, "We're not going to school this year, and next year is going to be questionable." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, it's not." So, so for me, when things started shutting down, I love my family to be home alone. I also like to actually be alone. So there were a lot of really great things. Fortunately for us, our kids are they don't struggle with school, and while online school was absolutely challenging for them, and there were quite a few hiccups, we kind of made this funny rule that once a week for 10 minutes, I would just yell at everybody. I would pull up all the assignments and I would just yell for 10 minutes and, what's going on? And then I'd be done. So I felt like that was my parental duty.
Yes.
I really let my kids do kind of whatever they wanted. They could do school when they wanted. One of my kids has a friend with diabetes, and they were very, very careful in quarantine. And so, and our family also was. And so those two were able to do some of the things because, or at least in either of our homes, mostly because of how careful we were being. But I don't know, I really liked it. Oh, I loved not having to feel guilty when I didn't want to go somewhere, because I could just be like, no, we have COVID, so I can't do it. We started cooking. My boys have learned to cook. Aside from the money, honestly, we saved a ton of money. So we've been spending more money on other things, like actually, food ingredients. My boys are learning to cook. Some of them are just really good at it. I have 6 kids. My 4 oldest are grown and out of the house. And
How old are they?
my oldest just turned 29, and then my next is 26. And then I've got one that's just about to turn 24 and one that just turned 20. And then a 17 and a 15-year-old. During the summer, when we felt like it was really safe, we had, Sunday morning brunch with their kids. And I loved that we didn't have something Tuesday night and Wednesday night and Thursday night, and then have to remember all those things. And when they were doing choir concerts, I learned a lot about myself. I'm really curious to know what it's going to look like as we move forward.
This is something that's super interesting, is giving yourself permission to just be like, you know what? I did a lot of things that I didn't like doing. And so
Yeah.
now I'm just going to decide, like, how do I want to curate my life?
Yeah.
And just feeling like you giving yourself permission, learning to get your own back is part of being empowered.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And really, the other thing too is that because of how busy our lives were and what was expected and socially normal,
Yeah.
one of the things I think that was great about the pandemic is that, for me anyway, it really allowed me to see how I actually feel when all expectations were gone. When the expectation is that you're going to stay home, when the expectation is this is going to be this way, it allowed me to really, really examine and say, wait, how do I feel about that? Wait, how do I feel about my kids being involved in activities all the time?
I want to just kind of touch on a few things that you said about the social norms. When we have been playing the game with the way that, like, our society has these norms for us, these expectations. And so it's been really interesting, not only for you, but for all of us, really, is when we can take away all of that and decide, wait a minute, have to do those things anymore. And so now we have this like whole new level of liberation
Yeah.
that we never had before. It's like, it truly is like a clean slate.
Yeah.
And so being able to now decide, hey, wait a minute, I think there's these things that I really liked about being in, like, I liked the cooking, I liked the, all of that, these things I don't like. And so now moving forward, what kinds of ways are you deciding now to be the driver of your own life to create that what you really want?
Well, and a couple of the things, one of the things I discovered about myself was that my volunteerism and service had
Yeah.
always been dictated externally.
Mm,
It was something that was expected of me. It was something that was important to me, and how I served and what that looked like was very much prescribed.
mhm.
And one of the things that I learned was that if the service I give is generated genuinely inside of me from my own sparked interest, it's actually meaningful.
Yeah. So I call it the triple P. We have procrastination, people pleasing, and perfectionism.
Oh,
And so and really what it stems from is we actually don't learn that our voice and what we think of us is more important than what other people think.
yeah. External authority is very important for many people. And
Yeah,
in
and approval
normal,
from other people,
yeah,
even like
yep,
approval of your kid saying, "Mom, you made the best sandwich." Because like in the model that I do, like one of the main tools I use for my coaching is like we have a circumstance. So that could be a person, a situation, and then we have a thought about it. That thought will create a feeling. That feelings are always our battery or our fuel for our actions. So then of course, out of that feeling, we do all the actions, and then of course from the actions that gives us a result. So I'm actually always teaching. So we are always going through that model.
yeah,
But so what you're doing right now, and that's natural, like that's just how humans are. So we're always getting our own results. But whether we go to the lower brain or the higher brain, right? Like we decide which one if we're gonna be the driver of our own life, like
yeah,
which COVID has given us the opportunity to blank slate it and be like, okay, so how do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to live my life? And that's so you're just showing that this is what we do anyway.
yeah.
Like have a thought, gives us a feeling, that feeling generates our actions, and then we get our result. So
Yeah,
that's
and
what
it's important, and learning to even recognize those feelings. The one thing though you said that I think is important to remember too, though, for me and COVID, I am incredibly privileged. For me, I've been really fortunate um, to be able to have a positive experience. There are so many people who, I mean, all of the mental health facilities in the state of Utah
Mhm.
have been maxed out the entire time. My good friends who have therapy practices have never had more business and have never been more busy. And while that's, I mean, good to have your business booming, it's also really devastating. It's really devastating to know that so many people are having absolutely horrible,
Yeah.
life-changing, even life-ending experiences with
Well, it's definitely
COVID.
we're being tried more than we've ever have been.
And some of us a lot more than others. And
Absolutely.
I really am fortunate um, that it's been not, and it's not over yet.
Oh, no. And that's the beautiful thing. It's
It's
like
not over yet.
we are always especially as I'm working on this presenting this resiliency
Yeah,
series, we're showing that yeah, we're not saying everything's going to be hunky dory, not at all.
yeah,
But we're also looking that there's been a lot of really good and really bad. And to be able to balance that out will help people to have the ability to work through the challenges and the difficulties and
yeah.
accept them.
I hope so. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Because again, for a lot of people, it's been um, way less easy than it has
I
been
like that.
for
Way less easier. Life is
way
way
less
less
easier.
easier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Super. Yeah, super.
It's all good. It's
Yeah,
all good.
exactly.
Well, thank you, Marion. This has been really fun. I think I love that we can, I love this idea of like, we just get to decide who we want to be, and then we can just actively pursue that for ourselves. And we can start creating those boundaries for ourselves. So thanks so much for spending this time with us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.